Hey family, welcome back to Beck's Flavor. Hope you are all doing very well. Today I want to share with you this aubergine stew. Yes, it's just like garden eggs but then cheaper and just as tasteful as garden eggs. So if you're struggling to find garden eggs where you live, or you just want to try a cheaper alternative, then this stew is definitely up your street. So stay tuned and let's get started. So here are all the ingredients that I will be needing to make this stew. I have got some onions, some garlic, some Scotch bonnet, and some salted fish or Kobe or whatever you like to use. I've also got some smoked mackerel that I picked up from my local store. I picked this up from Aldi. You can also use the tinned mackerel if that's what you have. I've got some chopped tomatoes. I have got some shrimps or king prawns, whichever you like to use, some eggs, some shrimp seasoning and some salt as well, and of course the aubergine. Okay, I'll list everything in the description box below, so please do check that out. So to get started, I am going to be cooking my aubergine. So just as you would with your garden eggs, I am going to be cooking this. Now, when you cut this up, just make sure that you put it on the fire straight away, or you immerse it in water straight away, because if you leave it out, it's going to start to darken. Okay, it will get this dark brownish color, and you don't really want that. It won't affect the taste, but it just doesn't look as nice. You can also take off the skin if that's what you prefer, but of course I am leaving everything as it is. So now that I've finished cutting up all my aubergines, I'm going to be adding some water, and then I'm going to be cooking this until it's nice and soft, just as you would with your garden eggs. Okay. So to get started, I am going to be putting some vegetable oil into my pan. You can also use palm oil or olive oil, any other oil that you so prefer, okay? And then I am going to add in my salted fish, the garlic, and the Scotch bonnet, and also the onions. And I'll allow this to fry until nice and golden. So after frying for about 5 minutes, my onions are not quite as brownish as I would like them. But of course you can, at this point, just add the remaining ingredients if you like. But I want mine to be a little bit on the browner side, a little bit more caramelized. And then I'll go ahead and add in my tomato. So I'm going to allow it to fry for another 2 or 3 more minutes. So after 2 or 3 minutes, it is now looking more caramelized than how I want it to be. So at this point, I am going to be adding in my chopped tomatoes. If you don't have chopped tomatoes, if you had the canned one, you can also use the canned one as well. It is equally fine. I used about 5 small tomatoes for this. I'll list everything in the description box below, so please do check that out, okay? Then I'm going to allow this to cook for about 5 to 10 minutes until it's nice and softened. So I checked on my tomatoes about 5-7 minutes in, and it's starting to soften, but not as quite soft as I want it to be, and it's not fully cooked. So I'm just going to give it a stir to ensure that it is not burning or sticking on the bottom of the pan, and then I am going to allow this to cook another 5 or 10 more minutes. I'm now going to be adding in some shrimp seasoning. At this point, I am not going to be adding any salt because the salted fish that I use is quite salty, and I'm also adding in just some crayfish powder as well, okay? So as I'm saying, I'm not adding any salt because my salted fish is very salty, and the mackerel that I'm going to be using is quite salty as well. So I'm going to hold off the salt for now until everything comes together, and then I will taste for salt because I don't want it to be too salty. Okay, so please ensure that you wait until later before adding any salt to this. Or if you're not using the salted fish, then you are good to go. So now my tomatoes are nicely cooked and nicely softened, so it's ready for me to now add in my eggs. I'm just going to distribute the eggs evenly, and then I am not going to cover the pan this time. I'm just going to leave it until the egg sort of hardens and settles in the stew. Now that my aubergines are nicely cooked, look how soft it is. I am going to be mashing this up. You can use a potato masher to mash this up, or you can also blend it in a blender or a food processor. But I am going to be using my pesto because I like the texture. I like a bit of the chunky texture. I don't want it to be too soft, but if you want yours to be nice and smooth, just go ahead and blend it or put it in a food processor, or just mash it up very, very smoothly, okay? So this is how I want mine to be. Like I said, I want some texture. I want a bit of chunks in there, so I am going to leave it as that. So now that my eggs are nicely done, I'm just going to give this a quick stir to ensure that it's not burning once again. And I'm just stirring this together, and I'll allow this to sit for another minute or two. So after about a minute, I am going to be adding in my smoked mackerel. Like I mentioned before, I had this mackerel from Aldi. It is really, really nice, but it's quite salty. And yes, I kept the last bit to eat myself. It's very, very salty, as I was saying. So if you're using it, please be mindful of the added salt that you're going to be adding in into your stew, okay? I'm going to give everything a nice mix, and then I'll leave this to cook for about 2 to 3 minutes to allow the mackerel to infuse some, taste into the stew. So now after about 5 minutes, I've added in my aubergine, and I'm just going to mix everything together and make sure that everything is nicely mixed and incorporated together. Okay, that is how simple this stew is to make. Honestly, it is super, super simple and very, very flavorful. If you're struggling to get some garden eggs where you live, if they're too expensive, I got this aubergine, I think 69p for one, so they are very, very cheap in comparison to the actual garden eggs, and they really taste the same. It is very, very nice. So try this alternative and thank me later, okay? So after about 5 minutes, I am going to add in some salt now because I tasted the salt content, and now I am happy to add in some more salt. So I'm going to be adding just a little bit of salt, and then also I am going to be adding in some all-purpose seasoning as well. But this was after I have tasted everything. So please make sure you taste everything before you go in and add in salt and other things. And now I'm adding in my king prawns because hey, it is really nice, okay? Just try it and let me know. I'm going to be mixing everything together, and then I will allow this to sit for just a minute because at this point everything is cooked. The king prawns that I'm using are already cooked, so I don't need it to fully cook. I just need it to warm up and get some flavors into the stew. So it will be about a minute or two, and then our stew is done. Now look at this beauty. It smells so amazing. Don't let the color throw you off, okay? I promise you, it is very, very good. What are you going to have with this stew? Of course, I am going to have mine with some yam because, I mean, come on. This stew and yam are like a match made in heaven, all right? But of course, you can have with any other thing that you want. You can have with potatoes, you can have with rice, anything that you want. This stew will make sure that everything tastes nice. Okay, now if you made it so far in this video and you haven't yet subscribed, what are you waiting for? Please go ahead and do subscribe to my channel so you can join the Bex Flavor family. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram because I share lots and lots of stuff on Instagram, my sort of everyday life, whatever I do, I share on Instagram. So do follow me on Instagram. Don't forget to comment and like and share this video with everyone you know. Tell them to be part of this beautiful family. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.